A major collision is happening across the United States right now, and the setup we're seeing in the latest data is extremely concerning. Two completely opposite air masses are crashing into each other, and millions of people are about to feel the impact over the next 24 to 48 hours. Here's what's driving this entire event. An exceptionally cold Arctic air mass has plunged down from central Canada, bringing some of the most frigid temperatures we've seen this winter. At the same time, warm and very humid air is streaming northward out of the Gulf of Mexico. When these two systems collide like this, the atmosphere responds aggressively. We're watching an intense frontal boundary develop that stretches from northeast Texas all the way through the Ohio Valley and into the northeast. This is not a quiet weather day. Let's start with the big picture across North America. The Canadian high-pressure system sitting over central and eastern Canada is acting like a dam, forcing that Arctic air southward into the United States. This is textbook polar outbreak territory. Meanwhile, the Gulf of Mexico is pumping moisture and warmth northward. The clash zone between these two air masses is creating one of the most active weather corridors we've tracked this season. The temperature difference across this front is staggering, with some locations seeing a 50-degree spread over just a couple hundred miles. The jet stream positioning is making this even more intense. Strong upper-level winds are providing additional energy to the developing storm systems along the front. This is the kind of pattern that meteorologists watch very carefully. Starting out west along the Pacific coast, conditions are relatively calm compared to what's unfolding further east. Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia are dealing with typical Pacific moisture streaming onshore. Scattered rain showers are moving through Seattle and Portland as marine air continues flowing in off the ocean. As that Pacific moisture encounters the Cascades and the Rockies, we're seeing a transition to snow at the higher elevations. The mountain passes could pick up several inches of fresh powder, which is great for ski resorts, but potentially challenging for mountain travel. Vancouver is also seeing rain as that Pacific flow continues. Nothing extreme happening out west, but it's worth noting that the mountains are getting a fresh coating. The coastal areas remain mild, with temperatures in the 40s and low 50s. The real story is happening much further east. Now let's talk about the Central Plains and the Midwest, because this is where things get very serious. The latest model guidance is showing an intense line of thunderstorms firing up right along that frontal boundary. We're talking about a corridor that runs from northeast Texas and Arkansas through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio. This is not just rain we're dealing with. The radar signatures are indicating some very strong cells with heavy rainfall rates, frequent lightning, and significant severe weather potential. The atmosphere in this zone is extremely unstable. Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio are sitting right in the crosshairs. The storm line moving through these states is showing classic severe weather characteristics: heavy downpours, damaging wind gusts, and the possibility of isolated tornadoes are all on the table. Springfield and Indianapolis, you need to pay very close attention to this forecast. You're positioned directly in the most intense part of this system. Conditions are going to deteriorate rapidly as this line moves through. We're seeing all the ingredients for severe thunderstorms in your areas. The Storm Prediction Center is monitoring this corridor closely, and severe weather watches may be issued for portions of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. If you're in this zone, make sure you have multiple ways to receive weather warnings. Power outages are possible with the kind of wind threat we're expecting. Little Rock, you're on the southwestern edge of this frontal zone. The storm line is ramping up over your area right now. Heavy rain with extremely high rainfall rates, gusty winds, and frequent lightning are all moving into Arkansas. The ground is already saturated from recent rainfall, so any additional heavy rain is going to run off quickly. Memphis is also in the warning zone and should expect similar conditions as this line pushes through tonight. Outdoor plans need to be reconsidered. This is not the kind of weather you want to be caught outside in. Further north across the Great Lakes, the story changes significantly. Chicago, you're on the northern edge of this system, which means you're dealing with a sharp temperature drop. The cold air is rushing in behind the front. We could see a transition from rain to a wintry mix as this system moves through Chicago. Temperatures that were in the 40s this morning are going to plummet into the 20s by tonight. Wind chills will drop into the teens. This is going to feel like winter made an aggressive comeback. Milwaukee and Green Bay are in the same situation. That rapid temperature drop, combined with gusty winds, is going to make it feel brutal outside. Heavy coats and winter gear are absolutely necessary. The Great Lakes themselves are playing a role here. Once that cold air comes screaming across the relatively warm lake waters, we could see some intense snow bands develop. Areas downwind of Lake Michigan and Lake Erie need to watch for possible lake effect enhancement. Columbus and Pittsburgh, the intense storm line is barreling toward you. Right now, conditions might still be relatively quiet, but that's about to change dramatically. This precipitation band is moving east at 40 to 50 miles per hour. By tonight into tomorrow morning, you're going to see significant deterioration in weather conditions. Heavy rain, gusty winds potentially reaching 50 miles per hour, and possible embedded thunderstorms are all headed your way. Cleveland and Erie could also see some lake effect activity as winds shift to the northwest behind the front. Let's shift south for a moment and talk about the Gulf Coast and Deep South. Interestingly, much of this region is staying warm and relatively dry. The deep moisture is being pulled northward into the frontal system. Areas like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama are mostly on the sidelines for now. Temperatures across the Gulf Coast are running well above normal, with readings in the upper 60s to low 70s. Mobile and New Orleans are seeing mild conditions. However, Arkansas and Tennessee, you're not so lucky. You're right in the active zone where the frontal passage is bringing heavy rain and embedded thunderstorms. Nashville could see strong storms tonight as the line pushes through your area. The good news for the Gulf Coast is that the severe weather stays well to your north. But don't get too comfortable, because the cold air will eventually make it down to you by tomorrow night. Now, as this system continues pushing east, the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast are next in line. The Ohio Valley Storm Complex is going to move into Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, and the broader Mid-Atlantic region. Timing looks like late tonight into tomorrow morning. We're expecting widespread rain, possibly some embedded thunderstorms, and very gusty winds as this system moves through. Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City should all prepare for a stormy commute tomorrow morning. This is going to impact the heavily populated I-95 corridor. Rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches are likely across the Mid-Atlantic. Locally higher amounts are possible where thunderstorms train over the same areas. The winds are also going to be a significant factor, with gusts potentially reaching 45 to 55 miles per hour. Those kinds of wind gusts can bring down tree limbs and cause scattered power outages. If you have any loose outdoor items, secure them now. Anything that's not tied down could become a projectile. Let's talk about what's happening up north, because this is where the cold is most intense. Central and eastern Canada are under the influence of a very strong Arctic high-pressure system. This is the source of all the bitter cold we're seeing. The northern border states are feeling it hard. Bismarck, North Dakota, you're in a deep freeze right now. Temperatures are running well below zero, with actual air temperatures bottoming out near -15 to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chills are dangerous across the northern plains. We're talking about wind chills dropping to -30 or colder in some locations. This is the kind of cold where exposed skin can get frostbite in just minutes. Montana and northern Minnesota are dealing with the same brutal conditions. Fargo and Grand Forks are also seeing these extreme temperatures. If you need to be outside, limit your time and bundle up completely. The Dakotas are seeing some of the coldest air of the season. Michigan's Upper Peninsula is also dealing with sub-zero temperatures and lake-effect snow on the backside of this system. Marquette could pick up 6 to 12 inches of additional snow as northwest winds howl across Lake Superior. Winnipeg in Manitoba and Regina in Saskatchewan are also under the gun with this Arctic outbreak. These are temperatures that haven't been this low in several years across the Canadian prairies. One of the major concerns with this setup is flash flooding potential. When you have a narrow corridor of very heavy rain moving over the same areas for several hours, the ground simply can't absorb it fast enough. We're watching this risk very closely from Arkansas through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio. Some computer models are suggesting rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches across this corridor. Isolated higher amounts are possible in the strongest thunderstorms. Low-lying areas, small streams, and urban zones with poor drainage are particularly vulnerable. St. Louis could see significant street flooding if the heaviest rain sets up over the metro area. If you encounter standing water on roads, do not attempt to drive through it. Turn around, don't drown. This cannot be stressed enough. There's also a legitimate severe thunderstorm threat we need to discuss. The ingredients are coming together perfectly for strong to possibly severe storms. We have warm, humid air with dew points in the 60s streaming up from the Gulf. We have strong wind shear from the jet stream, with upper-level winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. And we have the powerful lifting mechanism from the front. That's the classic recipe for severe weather. While we're not forecasting a major tornado outbreak, the potential for isolated tornadoes does exist. This is especially true in that corridor from Arkansas up through the Ohio Valley. Any storms that develop could be intense and fast-moving. Damaging wind gusts are probably the biggest threat with this system, but we can't completely rule out a few tornadoes, particularly in eastern Arkansas and southern Missouri. Keep your phone charged and weather alerts turned on. On the northern edge of this system, we're dealing with different problems. The cold air is so intense that any precipitation falling on the northern fringe is likely to be snow or a wintry mix. Parts of Michigan, northern Illinois, and even upstate New York could see snowflakes mixing in. Buffalo and Syracuse should monitor conditions closely as the changeover occurs. Road conditions could deteriorate quickly once that transition happens. This is particularly true in areas that see that sharp temperature drop. Looking at the broader pattern over the next 24 to 36 hours, this frontal system is going to continue marching east. By tomorrow afternoon, the worst of the severe weather should be exiting the Ohio Valley and moving into the Appalachians and the Mid-Atlantic. The Northeast will see the brunt of it tomorrow night into early Friday. Behind the front, much colder air is going to settle in across the eastern two-thirds of the country. We're talking about a temperature drop of 20 to 30 degrees for many locations. Areas seeing temperatures in the 50s and 60s today will struggle to get out of the 30s tomorrow. That's a dramatic change in a very short period of time. The wind is also a major story with this system. As the low-pressure system intensifies, the pressure gradient is tightening significantly. That means gusty winds are expected not just in the thunderstorms, but also on the backside of the system. We could see sustained winds of 25 to 35 miles per hour, with gusts over 45 to 55 miles per hour in some areas. This is particularly true from Illinois through Pennsylvania. Secure any loose outdoor items immediately. This is one of those multifaceted weather events, where different regions are dealing with completely different hazards. The West Coast is relatively quiet, with just some rain and mountain snow. The northern tier is battling extreme cold and dangerous wind chills. The central corridor is under the gun for severe weather and flash flooding, and the east is bracing for a stormy period with heavy rain and strong winds. It's a textbook example of how dynamic our atmosphere can be when you get strong temperature contrasts. We'll continue monitoring the latest model runs and radar trends very closely. Conditions are evolving quickly, and if you're in any of the highlighted zones, stay tuned to local warnings and weather updates. This is not a day to ignore the weather forecast. Be smart, stay safe, and keep checking back for updates as this system continues to develop and move east.